Lately, I've been making a lot of Italian food. Usually, I'll find a recipe and I'll make several variations over it over the course of a couple of meals to really come up with what I think is the perfect recipe. So to make our dough recipe for the home cook, it's gonna happen in a couple of stages. First stage will be to take slightly lukewarm water, just a little bit warmer than tap temperature. To that, we're gonna add our yeast. We're gonna let our yeast come back to life in the water for a little while. At the same time that that's happening, we're gonna measure out our flour and our sugar, our oil, and our salt, and put all those ingredients in one bowl. By the time we've got those measured out, our yeast will have activated, which is what happens when it sits in the warm water. It kind of comes back to life. We'll add the yeast to the flour and the salt, the sugar, and the oil, everything together. And at this point, we want to knead for about 1 minute, and 1 minute only. After 1 minute of kneading, we're going to cover the dough and let it rest for 5 minutes. And what the 5 minutes is going to do is allow the flour time to hydrate, which means it's going to fully absorb all of the water that we've added to it. And while it's hydrating, the gluten proteins are also activating. So we're going to start to see what that characteristic dough look where you see the gluten right in the dough. After that 5 minutes is up, we'll take it out. We're going to knead for a further 10 minutes. And that's it. After we've kneaded for 10 minutes, we can let the dough rest again for another 20, and then we can start to portion it. When we portion the dough, we're going to cut it into 250-gram pieces, which is about 9 ounces. You can make any size you want. That's the size we make here, and we think it's pretty good for one person. So we'll portion all the dough. We're going to tighten it all up into balls, lay it out in trays, and then let it rest for about 6 hours before you use it. Resting for 6 hours is going to allow the yeast to multiply and to start to digest the fermentable sugars in the dough. And as the yeast do that, they release carbon dioxide gas, which allows the dough to grow and puff up. So if the yeast don't have time to come to life and to get into that stage where they're eating, you won't get any rise in your crust. There's a lot of different techniques to take your dough ball and stretch it out into a full-size pizza shell. So, our technique, the Neapolitan technique, is called slap and stretch. And so that involves pressing out the dough ball a little bit, and then we take it and we stretch it, flip it, slap it, turn it, flip it, stretch it, flap it. At home, what we don't recommend is a rolling pin. You never want to use a rolling pin on your dough because that's going to press down the edge of the crust and you won't get that nice cornice all the way around. So when we're stretching or rolling out our dough at home, we'll do it by hand and we never want to touch the edge. Only work the inside of the dough ball to press that out and leave the edge as intact as possible so you can get that really nice puff. So once we've unrolled our dough and pressed it out and shaped it into a nice round, we're going to transfer it to a pizza peel. And a pizza peel is a big flat board with a long handle. So the pizza peel needs to be well floured so that the pizza will come off of it and land on our pizza stone. So a pizza peel, they're pretty cheap. They're like 10 bucks. You can get them in almost any cooking supply store, any restaurant supply store if you can't find one at your local mall. And they'll last forever, so they're great. If you don't have a pizza peel, you can use the back of a cookie tray and put a lot of flour on that too, and you use it the same way. And now we can do the fun part, which is tomato sauce, cheese, and picking all the toppings. From there, sky's the limit in terms of where you want to go with your toppings. So before you start unrolling any of your dough, you want to make sure you have all of your other ingredients ready for your pizza. So sauce should be made, cheese should be grated, all of your toppings lined out up on your counter so you can put the pizza together quickly. The longer the pizza sits before it's cooked and while it's topped, it's going to start to kind of go mushy. The dough is going to get wet from the tomato sauce. It's going to fall apart. Now, once you start going, you want to work quickly. You want to preheat your oven to as hot as it will go. And in most home ovens, it's going to be 500 or 550. And give it a good long time. Give your oven every bit of half an hour to 45 minutes to really get hot. It's very important that the oven is as hot as possible and that those pizza stones that we're going to work on have had a lot of time to absorb a lot of heat. Once the pizza comes out of the oven, I like to transfer it to a wooden cutting board, which will help absorb some of the steam coming off of the bottom and lead to a little bit crispier crust. And then you want to let it sit for about a minute, which will allow the cheese a little bit of time to set up and kind of the whole pizza to come together. After the minute's gone by, put a little finishing salt across the top and go ahead and slice it up. You're ready to go.